What's up, you guys? So the time I spent in the southern state of Oaxaca, Mexico is probably one of the greatest experiences I've had in my entire life. Walking in between the different villages while spending a lot of time in the local markets really opened my eyes up to an amazingly beautiful culture. Not only was the weather beautiful, but the families and the people I met were truly amazing. And the stories that I came back with will definitely last a lifetime. So with Cinco de Mayo coming up, I thought I'd pay tribute to my southern neighbors by cooking and eating like they would for an entire day. So for this video, I give you 24 hours in Mexico. And for breakfast, we're going to have a very traditional Chiliquiles dish. Now, we're actually going to start this the night before because one of the things I've learned is prepping in advance is definitely the way to go, especially when you're going to be making multiple dishes from scratch. Now, as you see here, I'm making the chips by hand. You don't have to do this, you can just buy regular tortilla chips. I would suggest at least leaving them out overnight to stale up, because in this dish you actually want them to be kind of stale. Now, as you see here, I'm actually making the salsa the night before as well, and whenever I make salsa, I generally make a large batch of it, just because it's good to always have in the fridge, and it's a very versatile thing to add to other dishes. Now, I should probably take the time to explain exactly what chilaquiles are. And what it is it's corn tortillas that are usually lightly fried and then simmered in a salsa or some other type of sauce. Now, for the sauce that I'm going to simmer my tortilla chips in, I'm going to be using a rojo sauce. There's also different kinds. You can use a verde, which is a green sauce, but I thought a tomato-based sauce would be probably the best. And it's actually the kind that I had down in Mexico, so why not try to recreate it? And as you saw, I was rehydrating a Passillo Chili and an Ancho Chili. They just add amazing flavor, and I always have them in my pantry. And I like to leave the sauce a little bit thinner on the thin side just because, as you can see here, as you simmer the tortillas in it, they'll actually thicken up quite nicely. And here I'm going to squeeze out the chorizo. Now, a lot of these ingredients you're going to see me use today, I actually bought from a local Mexican grocery store. And I highly suggest you guys definitely go and check them out. Definitely support them. They're usually family run, and they carry some really interesting ingredients. So I'm going to cook up the chorizo and add it into our simmering pot of corn tortilla chips. And now I'm going to move on and cook up some onions for the refried beans. Now, I also made refried beans in a previous video. The link will be down in the description. You can look that up. I'll go more into detail in that other video. Now, as you can see here, I leave my refried beans a little bit chunkier. I do like a bit more texture in my foods. It's just a personal preference. You don't have to do that, though. And as you can see here, I'm going to be plating the chilaquiles. Now, I like to leave mine a little bit on the crispier side. Again, I like my foods to have a bit more texture in them. Not a super big fan of super soggy chips. And here I'm going to sprinkle on some Queso Fresco, something else that you can probably find in a grocery store, but you can definitely find it in a Mexican grocery store. Or you could just use feta cheese, they're almost the same. Now, another thing that I'm actually going to be starting the day before here is the conchas, or pan dulce, which is a kind of a brioche type of sweet bread. It's not overly sweet, but it really makes breakfast that much better. And because this is a yeasted bread and it's a really enriched bread, being that there's sugar, eggs, and milk in it, you're going to want to make this overnight or start it overnight because it will take a lot of time for the dough to proof and rise. And here I am adding in all the wet ingredients. Now I'm going to be adding in the dry ingredients slowly at first just to make sure everything is well combined. Now, this is a very enriched dough, being that the butter content is almost equal to that of the flour content. Of course, all of the amounts are going to be written down in the description. That's where you can find it all. And as you can see, this is not a very easy dough to work with just because it is a very high hydration dough because of all the butter. So you're definitely going to want to use a good bit of flour to keep it from sticking. It is going to stick, it's just something you're going to have to deal with. So I put it in a very well-oiled bowl with butter. And here I am the next morning taking it out. As you can see, it's really stiff. You're going to want to use its stiffness to your advantage. Here I'm going to just be making 4 of them. You could probably get 6 out of this recipe just because mine are actually going to be way too big. Now here I am shaping them, and you want to create enough surface tension, that way they plump up evenly. I can't stress it enough. the actual tension that you build into the dough is very important. And I will go over surface tension in dough in a later video when I make sourdough. But for now, we're just going to put this off to the side and start making our topping. Now, the toppings can taste any way you want them to. Here I'm just doing a vanilla and chocolate one. The toppings generally comprise of butter and just powdered sugar in close to equal amounts, and you want your butter to be as close to room temperature as possible, that way you can really knead in the sugar. And here I am, I'm just going to flatten some pieces out and drape them over our resting dough balls. And after you drape them over, you can cut into any design that you want into the top, and you're going to want to let them proof for about an hour to 2 hours, just so they really fluff up and you get that super incredible fluffy texture on the inside. And as you can see here, it did come out perfectly fluffy and really light. Now here I'm going to also make some chocolate milk, because in the region that I was in, they had chocolate milk with just about every dish. Now moving on to lunch, we're going to have a Carne Asada Torta. And the way you can think of torta is it really is just a Mexican sandwich. And to start off our Carne Asada marinade, we're going to blitz up a large orange, as well as a quarter of a red onion, and I would highly suggest using a red onion just because it is naturally more sweet. Now I'm going to add in a ton of lime, because the lime really brings up the acidity and makes it gives it a really fresh taste. And of course we're going to throw in a ton of cilantro as well, because this is again a carne asada, so you got to have your cilantro in there. And we're going to throw in a bit of garlic as well as a bit of salt. And I do highly suggest you guys actually make this. This came out amazing, and it really is really good. Again, the exact quantities are going to be down in the description below. Now I'm going to add it to a bag with our flank steak, and of course you always want a double bag, because you don't want this thing blowing up in your fridge. That'd be really bad. Now you want to let it rest in the fridge for at least 2 hours, just so that way everything is well absorbed. Oh, and side note, I also added white wine to it. But here, as you can see, I'm going to add it to a very hot skillet to make sure we sear the outside nicely. And because it's a flank steak, it's a very thin steak, so you do want to just sear the outside in a very hot pan. And because flank steak is a very tough cut of steak, you do want to make sure you cut it against the grain. That way you get the most tenderness out of it as possible. And of course I'm going to just toss it around in its own juices, because all that flavor is amazing. And now I'm going to throw my bread in the pan to toast it, because if you guys aren't toasting your bread for sandwiches by now, well, it's time to grow up and become an adult. And I'm going to just smear the bottom with a layer of refried beans. Yep, the same that I made for breakfast. Now I'm going to artfully stack up the carne asada while putting on some veggies on top. And now here I'm going to add some Queso Oaxaca, which is just this string cheese. It's almost like mozzarella cheeses here. A little bland, but really is something that's pretty good. And I'm going to add on some pickled red onions, because I always have them on hand, as well as smearing the top with a bit of mole sauce. And for dinner, we're going to make a Oaxacan classic, the Tayluda. And again, these are Tayludas that I found at the local Mexican grocery store. And I'm going to start off by smearing the bottom with the refried beans. And at this time, I did mix the refried beans in with some of the mole sauce. The mole sauce, I go into more detail what exactly it is in my tamale video. So you guys are definitely going to want to check that one out. Now this is pretty much known as the Mexican pizza, so you can throw whatever toppings you want on it. Here I'm pretty much just going to throw in the leftovers that I had throughout the day, so some carne asada, some chorizo, definitely a lot of the queso Oaxacan cheese, some of the leftover lettuce, some jalapenos. Really dress it up any way you guys want. And here it is, the Oaxacan Tayluda. Of course I'm going to throw on some more pickled red onions, because these are amazing and I have a ton of it in my fridge. So here I'm also going to throw on some cilantro, and this is truly amazing. It is so good. I really recommend you guys give this one a try. It's a great way to finish off the night. And speaking of finishing off the night, you guys might have realized that I don't actually have a dessert. And that's because, well, after spending the entire day cooking and eating like I would have if I were in Mexico, it left me pretty damn tired. So if you could write down in the comment section below your favorite Mexican dessert, or if you heard about a Mexican dessert that sounds really good, I'll try my best at recreating it in a future video. Now guys, please have an amazingly safe and fun Cinco de Mayo. Please follow me on Instagram for our future recipes, as well as some behind the scenes looks. And thanks for watching. Peace.